to his leaving the land of Egypt. 40 more years passed, during which time Moses lived as a shepherd, was married, and became the father of 2 sons. During these 40 years, he doubtless became familiar with the land that he would later bring the children of Israel into. And I thought that was interesting, that Moses, he wasn't just taking the people into a land that he really didn't know. I believe during his time, those years that he was away, as the lesson says here, that he gained some knowledge about the land, the lay of the land, and various things in it. Moses learned much, but regardless how much a person may learn, he still needs God's help to accomplish God's purpose in life. For a man to be a good leader, he must first learn to be a good follower. So I believe that's true. I think, God works with people, and there's always qualifications, aren't there, for people, regardless of what it is, a leader, or a teacher, or whatever we do, we want to be able to, if we just go out, if we go out witnessing or visit or whatever we do, we want to do it for the glory of God and not just go out in vain. Whatever we do, God can help us. We want to learn from others. And I think that's good, and we learn from other people. The Bible teaches us that we're all, in that thought, teachers. We're all examples. And I find, I think about different people in life that I can think of, I can look at, or I can meditate about their work and how they done, and it's just some good examples. So we know Moses, we know that he had the people of God at heart. As you read this, you can't help but see that, can you? Many times even Moses one time said, Lord, if you will not forgive them, said, blot out my name out of your book. So that was a great love, for those people, for the people of God. And he was willing, to continue on to suffer those things that God may accomplish his will. Okay, meditation. As we was reading about that, it says a strange sight. One day Moses led his father-in-law's flock to the backside of Oreb, and there he saw a strange sight. So he turned aside to see a bush burning and yet not consumed. As he drew near, he heard a voice calling his name. He was told to remove his shoes, as he was on holy ground, and he told that God was the one speaking. So, Brother Reggie. Okay, Brother Reggie we'll get him the mic. Said to pull off your shoes, said you're on holy ground.
Thank you. Okay. Are we live?
I think we are.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing myself because of my ears are still not right, but from that sickness I had. But it's backing up a little bit to obedience. The Bible says that Jesus learned. He said though he was a son, this in Hebrews. He said, though he was a son, yet he learned obedience by the things which he suffered.
That's right.
And so even Jesus had to learn some obedience, according to what I'm saying. So this has helped me in different things I go through. I'm learning obedience through the things I have to suffer.
That's right.
So even though we suffer, it's not a bad thing always. I mean, we learn through our suffering. So, like I say, Jesus learned obedience through suffering, so who am I?
That's right. I think about Moses as a leader, now we think about Moses as he was in the court there, as he was in Pharaoh's presence. I believe that Moses, he had we could say, he could have had a posh, or he could have had it made in the shade, as we say. He had everything, Brother Reggie. But he made a choice, and he said he had to go. He forsook Egypt. He was willing to suffer affliction, with the people of God, than the joy, the pleasures of sin for a season. So he knew he had a choice, or he did have a choice, and he made that choice, and he knew, hey, these people are regarded as slaves. They regarded Is the servants, is, there's people, and am I willing, to become one of them? Am I willing to suffer with them? But he knew, I believe he had, through that obedience, God was able to show him things. God was able to help him. And sometimes we suffer, as you said. We may suffer some things, and we learn through that a lot of times. We learn through the things that we suffer and through the things that we go through and mistakes we make sometime or whatever God helps us. He knows our heart. That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? If we make mistakes or if we offend or something, it's always a blessing to know that we can say, God, I haven't willfully, maliciously, or intentionally done those things that would hinder your work or hinder your people. But, it says that he made that choice, that he was willing, to go through that and to suffer with them because he had a vision. He knew that God had a reason. God had made promise, and no doubt Moses thought about that. Somebody's going to lead these people. God is going to bring these people out. We're going into that country that he has led. He has called us. So he went and he went, and made that choice, and God was with him. And I enjoyed reading that. I don't know if you read it through the week, but old Pharaoh, man, he was a hard fellow, wasn't he? We use that sometime at work or somewhere. You may say, "Oh man, that man's a Pharaoh." A hard man. Hard to. And how old Pharaoh, when Moses said, well, we want to go worship God. We'll go out a few days and worship God. And Pharaoh said, or the people told Pharaoh, said, man, these people must be idle, to want to go to take a vacation, or go out and worship God. Said, man, you have too much idle time. And it seemed like it kind of backfired in that thought on Moses. They said, well, if you got time to do that, we're not going to even just destroy what we bring you to make all these brick and put in this brick. So we're not going to bring that to you. You're going to have to do that yourself. You got your idol. So it looked like, and some of them spoke against Moses and said, well, it's your fault, Moses, if you hadn't wanted to take us out like that and go worship God or whatever. But now look what you've done to us. We're going to have to work all this extra work, and we can't do it, So it seemed like that was a failure, but God was in that, and how as Moses went, he done all these things. And all those magicians, they would do a lot of the same things, but some things they couldn't do. But when God just kept on hardening his heart, Pharaoh's heart. But one would come down to that last time when God knew what would really break it down. He said he would pass over, and we know about the Passover, and we used to think about that as a child, that song, talking about the blood and how they put it on the doorpost. When that angel flew over, if that blood was applied, said the angel would go on his way. It wasn't. When it said at midnight, there was a great cry. The Egyptians, Pharaoh, and all them, they didn't believe God's word. They didn't do that. But if they were Egyptians that done that, God would spare them. So we know there was a great cry, and how Pharaoh called them in, and they was anxious for them to leave, wasn't it? Because they sang and said, just go, except we're all be dead men. So time to leave. And Moses said, when Moses returned to the land of Egypt, he first had to convince his own people that the time had come for them to leave. Then he went to see the king, but Pharaoh was of no mind to give up all that slave labor. And as we said, you can read about the cities, and they were using the children of Israel. Pharaoh, he just didn't want to give up all those things, but God was with Moses. And I know our time's getting close, but how Moses went in, and him and Aaron, they went in before Pharaoh, and eventually we know that Pharaoh let them go. let's look, well, we want to, let's see. God opened the sea and brought every Israelite safely out of the land of Egypt, safe on the other side. So we break in right there. It's where the children of Israel come to the sea, and they look behind them, and they seen Pharaoh. You know, Pharaoh still, you know, he was there for a little time. He humbled himself, but then he began to think of it again. Man, I've let these people go. You know, I'm going to pursue them. I'm going to bring them back. But, you know, God had a purpose for that, and how the children of Israel went through. God caused them to be able to go through the sea as on dry land, and he brought all those Egyptians, Pharaoh's army, and all those. They brought them into that path, and how the waters come back upon them and to destroy them. So God had brought his people great deliverance. And I know it's not in the lesson, but it talks about when they did come across through the Red Sea. On the other side, it says, you know, how Miriam, I believe it was, how they sung a great song, you know, that here they were on the other side, and God gave them great victory, and they had Moses to lead them and to help them along the way, and how they were singing that song about Pharaoh's army and all of his horses, and how God had made a great deliverance, and they were singing and giving God praise and glory for a great deliverance, you know, and how good it would have been if they would have kept that mindset. Have you ever thought about that, you know, the children of Israel and all the things that they had seen, yet they kept going backwards? You would have thought all the miracles, all the things that they had seen, how God had wrought with them. But, you know, they many of them died in the wilderness, and there was only, I believe, 2 that made it. That originally, you know, was started out or whatever, and that was Joshua, I believe, and Caleb, wasn't it? And they believed, you know, they went and they had sent those to spy out the land, and how it said, man, we're not able, you know, 10 out of 12. So the majority is not always right, are they? But, you know, it says that they said, we can't do it. But those 2 men that had the heart to do it and knew that God could help them and could lead them through his leaders, through Moses, those God would have to lead them. So we thank the Lord. Thank the Lord for his blessing.